Again, I'm going back to we want to learn to think like God thinks, and God needs no excuses for anything. So what the Tao taught me, and what change your thoughts, change your life, what it taught me was what to think. But over and over again, I kept hearing, especially after doing the PBS tours and so on, the idea that I know what to think. I know how to think soft. I know how to think kindness. I know how to think peace. What I don't know how to do is to change around the patterns that I have for thinking the way that I've been thinking for an entire lifetime. That here I am now in my 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, whatever it might be, and I have a lifetime of thinking a certain way. And if I could overcome that and learn to change that, how to change lifetime thinking habits. Habits rule the unreflecting herd, said William Wordsworth. Habits rule the unreflecting herd. Habitual thinking, a way of thinking that keeps me trapped in, even if I know what to think, I don't know how to stop this incessant habitual way of looking at my world from a position of shortages, from a position of lacks. And so I listened again and had another calling. One of them was a book called The Biology of Belief and Unleashing the Power of Consciousness. It's by a man named Bruce Lipton, PhD. This book was a life changer for me because here's what it taught me. It taught me that the biggest excuse that we have for why we are the way we are is this thing called our DNA. You see people interviewed on TV and they'll say, well, I can change my habits and I can change this and all that, but I sure as hell can't change my DNA. And then someone will say, well, that's absolutely right. And, and you'll hear people agreeing with that. Now, Bruce taught at medical schools for almost 20 years and finally told me that he had to leave because he realized that what he was teaching potential doctors about what it is that constitutes your ability to heal yourself is not located in something called particles, but it's located in something called spirit, in the invisibleness within us that we have the capacity to overcome even such things. And if you hear Bruce and read his book, which I recommend you do, you'll discover that there is something called the internal environment and the way that we process events through our conscious and our subconscious minds that can, in fact, alter and shift. Now, what this did for me is it gave me something called hope. It gave me something internally that says, if I get congestion in my chest, if I get heart palpitations, if I get a sore knee, if whatever it is, that I can begin, and this is what Excuses Be Gone is about, you can begin to think in terms of awareness. Thinking with awareness. What is thinking with awareness? Awareness, thinking, and ego are not compatible. They cannot exist or coexist together. Awareness thinking is when you think from your highest self, from the place that you originated from the God within you. When you begin to think like God thinks. One of the words that Jesus said in the New Testament was, with God, all things are possible. Now, what does that leave out? What does all things are possible leave out? No thing. Nothing. It leaves out nothing. When you begin to think from this level up here, the level of God consciousness, the level of spirit, the level of the Tao, whatever it is that comes into your life, when you begin to think in terms of not only aligning yourself with this kind of thinking, that all things are possible, and you just change that habit. The habit of, I've got an excuse, a built-in excuse, and the built-in excuse is, it's my biology, I just simply can't help my biology. But your biology comes from your beliefs, just as much as it comes from your inheritance. And knowing that you can change it.
Is this whole idea of you have objective attention and you have subjective attention. Objective attention is the attention that you are placing right now on the fact that it isn't showing up the way that you think it should be showing up. It says so on the internet. The economy is down. You're in a bad place. You're in Gary instead of, someplace else. All of that kind of stuff. What you want to do is shift to what's called subjective attention, and that attention is based upon your I am. If you saw the show, the words I am are the words that God spoke to Moses. So every time you use the two words I am, you're using the name of God. And if you say I am distressed, I am poor, I am sad, I am unhappy, I am discontent, you are really defacing the name of God. What you want to say is I am content, I am fulfilled, I am successful, I am happy, and literally have that as your internal mantra, if you will. And assume the feeling then of that wish fulfilled. And every single time you start going back to that, it's not happening, and the bills aren't being paid, or all of the excuses that you can come up with, go back instead to your I am, and then you'll begin to act on that. And the most important part of this is that you'll start aligning yourself with the source of the universe, which is saying, yes, so your subconscious mind has been programmed to believe that because things aren't showing up, that's an indication that things are always going to be bad. Instead, you start saying to yourself, I am already successful, and then you'll align with God, which makes things happen.